it's helpful. With that alarm, we will call to order tonight's work session for Tipton Community School Corporation. And our first item on that agenda is to review our proposed 2024 budget. And Brooke Cleaver's going to do that for us.
Thank you. Okay, so this will be reviewing our 2024 budget proposal. So if we get to the slides, we'll go over the next few slides that'll explain the budgeted funds, the purpose, and the revenue sources. As you see for the, this would be the education fund, impact on revenues and even operations. We were projecting enrollment at 1,410. And with the 7,987, that would get us just under 11.2 million, like 11,178,000 for the education fund. Assessed values as well impact operations fund and taxes. The Indiana statewide average income, as I'll explain on a later slide, impacts the operations fund. Circuit breaker property tax cap losses impact the operations fund. This year we're estimated to lose $568,000. We have grant added funding for staff, professional development, technology, and other instructional support, investment returns on deposited funds. We've had a really great year for interest income, so that's been nice. The education fund, of course, supports teacher salaries and fringe benefits, instructional aids, guidance counseling, special education, high ability programs, remediation, guidance counseling, nurses, speech pathology, the purchase of supplies and equipment for the classroom, education, media services, and finally athletics. Revenue sources would be the state basic grant. They've built into that academic performance grant, special education grant, career and technical education grant. They've now moved the non-English speaking grant from a separate grant that we apply for, enrolled it into the larger grant. We're also supported by local income taxes and miscellaneous other revenues such as reimbursements and summer school reimbursement from the state. Operations fund, of course, transportation, capital projects, general operations, business office, human resources, utilities, liability insurance, the custodial department, supplies and equipment, bus replacement, transportation, and mechanic, of course, and all the repairs that go along with having that large fleet of buses. Operations fund revenue resources, of course, funded by local taxes, including commercial vehicle tax, financial institution tax, and excise tax. Money can be transferred from the education fund. The state permits up to 15% of all education fund revenues. Local property taxes, the state sets the max levy, known as the max levy growth quotient, the MLGQ, you'll see it commonly referred to, and that's based on a 6-year average of Indiana's non-farm personal income and is calculated annually by the state budget agency. They did place a cap on 2024 for the growth and capped it at 4%. So it did grow by that amount. And the Department of Local Government Finance estimated our tax cap loss $568,000. We are currently losing $498,385 for 2023. The debt service fund pays the lease rentals, the general obligation bonds, and associated trustee fees. Our revenue for that is, of course, the CVET, license excise, financial institution with the balance funded by property taxes. Dr. Glaze included some budget history for you. We have a 6-year budget history. And for 2024, the total budget that we have drafted is $20,609,725. And the tax rate you'll see has a little asterisk by it. That is based on a reduced AV. The Department of Local Government Finance highly suggests, and we confirmed with her that that is still the practice, that you use a lower AV to protect your budget. If something would happen, and say we advertised at a lower budget and rate, and something happened that the assessed value like fell or was reduced, that protects us. So advertising at a higher rate is still common practice, and once they process our budget in December, you will see that rate fall. having the higher budget also allows for flexibility, because once you publish that rate in that budget, you can never ask for a higher rate. I mean, it's set. You can't go above that. So, and the only way to go for an additional higher budget was, in the past, we've had to file for additional appropriations, have a public hearing, publish things with the DLGF. So it just allows for flexibility. The next slide is the advertised versus approved total budget history. In 2023, when we did get our 1782 notice in December, I think it was disputed by $500,000, and we have a 10-day period to respond. So we replied back and said, hey, what about this, that, and the other? And then they fixed it, and we received what we requested. So, and you'll see they're advertised. We would be requesting the $20,609,725, and to be determined what they will approve. They'll work that in December. The next slide would be the AV and tax rate history over the last several years. Again, that 2024 rate will fall in December when they work the budget. And the actual AV this year is $786,918,508. I believe that was just a little over a 7% increase from last year. Okay, so if you go back to the one slide that has our...
I know. I was doing so well, and then suddenly I don't know how this is supposed to go. I'll just do it the manual way.
There it is. Oh, sorry. That is our fund appropriation. So
Did you
they
need one more
did,
back?
yeah,
Okay.
advance one more and then one more to the, I think that's just more history. They approved what we asked for last year. There you go. So the current year financial worksheet basically will look at those three budgeted funds, the operations, education, and debt service. And it goes through essentially this current year budget expenses, our remaining appropriation for the last 6 months. If you click on those, Ryan, can they see them? Or Dr. Glaze, sorry. I think it must be, if you click there, it'll go to the folder where they're all housed. Current year financial worksheet. So the current year financial worksheet basically is a snapshot of this year, what we've spent up through June 30th, what we have to spend in appropriation for the rest of this year. It looks at our June 30th cash balance for each of those funds. And we'll look at the December property tax collections for debt service and the operations fund. And then this information from these worksheets then feeds into the Form 4B, which is really the heart of the budgeting process. It's information from all these forms flows into the Form 4B to calculate your estimates and your tax rates. So there should be 3 of those, yep.
And you have access to all of these.
Yeah.
The, shared Google file.
Yeah, it is really just looking at what we're approved for in appropriations for this year, what we've spent so far, and what we have to spend for the rest of the year, because if you don't tell the DLGF you're going to come in under budget, they're assuming that you're spending all of your appropriation. And actually, I think last year we came in under in both the education fund and the operations fund, so we've put a line in there on those particular sheets saying we're going to come in under again. And that can help your next year's budget. Because again, if you don't tell them you can reduce, they're going to assume you spend it all, and that to them, appropriation is cash to them. So if we come in under, that will just help next year's budget as well. The budget form 1 is the budget estimate. Should be one spreadsheet. So the top section is debt service, budgeted for $3,885,173. The next section below that, which will go into several pages, is the education fund, which we have budgeted an estimate of 11,402,361. And the operations fund estimated budget is 5,322,191 on the last page, for a total of the 20,609,725. The next budget form is 2, which is an estimate of miscellaneous revenues. This sheet will focus on the outer column to the right is going to be estimated revenue for all of 2024. The column to the left of that is focusing on the last 6 months of this year potential revenues. And that all feeds into the Form 4B later. And your next form should be the Form 4B, budget estimate and proposed tax rates. So we'll have 3 of these. Let's see, debt service, education, operations. On each of these forms, the entire top section is for July to December of 2023. Looking again at our June 30th cash balance for each fund. Property taxes to be collected, except for the education fund, which doesn't collect property tax. Miscellaneous revenue for each, and expenses they're looking at for the last half of this year, to give you line 9, which would be a cash ending balance, potential cash ending balance for December 31st, 2023. And then that revenue then supports your 2024 budget. So the bottom half of that form applies to all of budget year 2024 with the revenue and expenses. For debt service, with what we expect to pay out and receive in revenue for the last 6 months and all of 2024. With debt service, you have to compute an operating balance, and based on what we have to pay out, that operating balance we have to hold in that fund, which you'll see on that form for debt service, is $626,708. So with using the reduced AV, our rate would come out to 0.5932. When the state works the budget in December, that will drop. Is the education fund next? Okay, okay. So we've drafted that budget at the 11,402,361 with potential supporting revenue. The cash ending balance for 12/31/23 was in the range of 466,475, plus your miscellaneous revenue for 2024, the 11,484,836, less the transfer that we are proposing to operations of $500,000. The budget would be met with the cash balance indicated. So that's the fund that does not draw property taxes, so there's no tax rate to compute, and there's no assessed value that applies to this particular fund. The next sheet is the operations fund that we drafted at the $5,322,191. Again, what we expect to pay out in expenses, receiving revenue for the last 6 months, all of 2024, hoping to achieve some operating balance there at the end using the reduced AV, and the rate would come out to 0.6145. Applying that 4% max levy growth quotient from last year's levy to 2024, our max levy target for 2024 is that $3,868,445, which you will see on line 11. Again, that rate will come down once they work the budget in December. The next budget form is Form 3, is your notice to taxpayers. That is the legal advertisement for publication and notice of the budget meeting. You'll see in column 2 there, debt service, our budget, the $3,885,173, education, $11,402,361, operations, $5,322,191. Column 3 is the debt service levy, and then the operations levy. And after our next meeting and with your review and consideration of that, if you give us permission to approve, we would post that to Gateway. We have to have it posted 10 days before our next hearing on September 26th. And that's all I have, unless Dr. Glaze has something to add.
Does anyone have any questions for Brooke? Thank you, Brooke. I know that was a lot. I do have just, does this budget, I know our budget sit on like so many different calendars, but this proposed budget, does this scheduled for January 1st of 2024 or for the school year 2020?
This would apply to January 1, 2024.
Okay, thank you.
It's always a challenge because you work on a 12-month budget, but you're really on an 18-month budget, and it just
Yeah, it's an 18-month snapshot for real.
Right.
yeah.
So like the only solid numbers you know for sure are your June 30th cash balance and what you've spent for the first 6 months
Okay.
and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
lots of projecting.
Thank you so much. A lot of work. Next on our agenda, I'd like to invite Ron Mingus to come up with Indiana Bond Bank Fuel Hedging Program. Hi,
Hi,
good evening.
good evening. With your permission, I'd like to hand out
Of course.
And Ron's going to talk to us, and we had some preliminary conversation regarding this. Another way that we may be able to save some money in our operations fund. This is something that several school corporations in Indiana utilize, and again, just for your consideration.
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I would like to just start very quickly. I apologize. The copier was in use today, and apparently we need a new drum because there's little splotches on the handout, and I couldn't get it in color. So I did the best I could with it. So I apologize for not being in color. But before I get started, just very briefly, the slide numbers are on the bottom. The second page, and I know it's back to back. Just a little bit about us. The Indiana Bond Bank's not a bank. We're a quasi-state agency created by the General Assembly to help local government borrow money. And we do things like equipment leasing, tax anticipation warrants. I know you've done tax anticipation warrants way in the past when we had delays in the distribution of property taxes 10, 20 years ago. I think you've done equipment leasing. We do public project financing. But I'm here to talk about fuel budgeting, which is one of the special things that we do. So we answer to a board of directors, which is appointed by the governor, and the treasurer of the state, Daniel Elliott, is chair of the board. So the bond bank is, as I mentioned, quasi. We don't get any direct tax dollars. The fees that we charge for our programs and the service we provide is how we fund the bond bank. So what is the fuel budgeting program? And I think this is the most important thing. This is a financial risk management tool. This is to protect you against rising fuel prices. Since 2009, we've done over 25 million in gallons, and we offer protection for both diesel and gasoline. We work with a team of professionals that have experience in doing this. There's a lot of legalities due to Dodd-Frank, and we pool with other entities. So in the 23 pool, we have 16 entities. 12 of those are school corporations, 2 are cities, 1's a county, and 1's a special fire protection district. So I'm on page 4. Again, prices of fuel go up and down, and I have a graph later in the presentation. The price of fuel goes up. What do? You'll have to still continue to pay for diesel for buses, and if you need to purchase gasoline, you need to continue to purchase that. And you already had your budget discussion, and you may have to pull from other sources other than your operations fund if they go up significantly. What this program does is protect that budget. And what we do is set a hedge. And I know some time ago that word was maybe a dirty word, but that's what we do. We set a hedge to protect your budget. And we do that by one of 2 ways, and we intend to set a cap. And how that works is we set a cap against what's called NYMEX for diesel and gasoline. gasoline is called RBOB. Don't ask me to give you the acronym. It's a real long acronym. And diesel is ULSD, ultra low sulfur diesel. And we do that transaction against what's are called considered wholesale pricing. So if you want to flip to page, the page that looks like this for gasoline, and kind of just discuss a little bit how this works. So in 23, because the cap price was so high, we had a floor too, which means there's a downside, which we're trying to avoid for 24. But how the program works, and you can see it in this month, we price against NYMEX and think about that as wholesale prices. Doesn't include distribution, doesn't include taxes. So if you're looking at what's paying at the pump, it's probably, as you can see, probably 80 cents lower, maybe even $1 lower because of all the taxes in Indiana. So if you look at August, we settled at 282 and some change. And we set a cap back in December of last year at 278. That means that we paid, and we were literally set out the checks today, or the distribution today, 4 cents of protection against rising fuel prices, or $1,793 against a pool of 36,893 gallons. And if you look at the rest of the other transactions, it stayed within that collar, the pricing settlement. If you look at that column called NYMEX daily average, it stayed within. And when it stays within, nothing happens. So if you want to think about it theoretically, if the price of fuel goes up, you're paying more for fuel, the bond bank's going to write you a check. This year, if the price of fuel goes down, and it goes down so low that it reaches this floor, then you would be paying us. We hope not to do it this year. We just hope to just have a cap and just pay a premium for cap. But we have to look at the pricing, and I can give you a little more about pricing later. But anyway, we stay within that. The next page is kind of the graphical, shows this graphically. So for the months of January through July, nothing happened in the transaction. You paid 15 cents per gallon, and you can choose how much you want to participate. You can't participate in more than 100%. But if you go above, if the price goes above that cap that we set, and we'll set it in December of this year, then we pay you protection. If it stays within, then nothing happens. If we happen to do a floor, and if it goes below that, you pay us, but you will be paying so little in fuel that it should work out for your budget. So what it does is just smooths out your budget. If we go to the next page, which is the diesel, you can see every month we have stayed within that range. So I know I'm talking something very technical here, but and then the next page is kind of that same graph, and you can see the price of fuel for diesel is going up if you look at this page. But I really want to highlight the trends. And if you look at this, you can see that the price of fuel goes all over. It goes way down, and if you see where it's gone way down, that is COVID. And you see where it spiked real up, and that's where the economy goes up. And you can see it's gone down and gone back up. What we're trying to help you do is, rather than having all these spikes and whatever, it's just level that all out. Level out all that pricing. So if there is something that happens, if there's something that happens in the Ukraine war, something happens with OPEC, whatever, that you can continue to make your budget and continue to transport kids with buses. And if you need to use gasoline or hedge against gasoline, that is what the program does. So I want to stop there. I've covered a lot, and see if you have any questions on the mechanics, and then we can talk about how you can participate. Okay.
So you're hedging against an open commodity market?
Exactly against NYMEX for ultra low sulfur diesel, and for RBOB, which is gasoline. We use a team to do that, and we would price that or set that hedge in early December after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a couple highlights. Continue to purchase gas or diesel the way you do now. Doesn't have to be changed. You can use whatever blend. I know we get a lot of questions about that in the transportation department. The second thing, we're not going to audit your fuel consumption. If you don't hit what you say on the application, we're not coming back. What you purchase is what you purchase. Continue to do what you're doing. The only thing that you shouldn't do is fix the price. And some entities fix their price with vendors like Country Mark or whoever, so they do a fixed price contract. This is what this program is doing. So that's the only thing that we'd recommend not doing is fixing your price. A couple other things, we will ask for fuel projections for 2024. And we just ask that you can't project more than 100% of your fuel projected consumption. And we actually have a municipal advisor who's going to look at your budget and just check to make sure that those numbers match up. So you can't speculate. You can't do 110%. We were at 80, and some entities asked us to go to 100, and we just want to double check that no one is speculating in our program. That's not the purpose. So this page here with the kind of the timeline. Processes, we've provided applications. I believe Brooke has the application. It's a 3-page application with some general questions, and then it asks for how much fuel, lists a little bit of historical fuel consumption for diesel and gasoline, and then what you project for 24. And then there's a column that basically, or a cell, it is an Excel spreadsheet, lets you say how much, and you can do up to 100%. So if you want to put 80% or 65% or 50%, whatever the entity wants to do, then you provide that, and that lets us know how many gallons are in the program. Applications are due October 27th. That is more of a deadline for the entities, less for us, because there are some legal requirements, and we provide everything based on 15 cents per gallon. So there's a portion that'll be paid the premium, and then there's a portion to pay the admin fees, including all of our professionals in it. So there'll be legal documents that'll be provided. You'll need to adopt those before the end of November. And then we will not do anything without reaching out to the school corporation. We'll provide a kind of what I call preliminary confirmation with how much you're going to hedge by month and what it costs. And there'll be no more than 15 cents per gallon, and then what the levels are, and you'll sign off on those. And if we cannot meet that level, we will come back with you and have you sign off on again. But we'll do a preliminary, and then we'll do a final. You are not committed until you sign the final. Obviously, there will be legal documents that you'll need to adopt as well before we can enter into this hedge. And we plan to enter into the hedge December 7th. Sometime that date moves, but that is approximately when we're going to do that. I have attached from our attorney that we provide in this program is Bose McKinney and Evans. It's Dennis Otten, and he's kind of provided the steps. I'm not going to go through all those, but I've just provided that just in case you want to see what the steps are in the legal process. Again, we provide all that in terms of cost. But basically, they will provide a legal document. Some of those documents will have blanks until we can set the hedge, and then those blanks will all get filled in. But again, we will not set the hedge without providing you all the information that you need to enter into the hedge. So at this time, I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions. I'll be happy to provide you the list of entities. I mean, I provide that to Brooke, but Hamilton Heights is in the program. I mean, that's the nearest school to here, but also Marion schools, Logansport, Zionsville. I mean, the whole list. There are 12 schools in the program. There are 2 cities, and they're Anderson and Lafayette, and then Jay County as the county. And then we have Fire Protection District in Southern Indiana. For the most part. I mean, you can reach out to Kristen McCarty at Hamilton Heights. She really loves the program. She told me the first year it took a year to catch on once we learned how we do the settlement and whatever. And that's something very important. The bond bank will provide you settlement information every month. We'll provide you a little commentary, kind of provide you the graphs that are in this presentation, so you know what's going on. But yes, I think you go through it a couple years. Yes, it's a good program. The one thing I would emphasize is 1 year it may work out, the next 2 years it does not. And yeah, you can see these graphs here, and it goes up and down. So there will be years that the bond bank does not pay off, and then suddenly last year I can tell you we paid out tens of thousands of dollars of fuel protection. to entities.
Do you know-
20, this year, we've only paid out 4 cents per gallon this year. So that is, and I don't know, gasoline's gonna go up, probably stay up a little bit, so we might pay a small amount, but it's a little bit of ways for diesel before we go out. I'm sorry, Dick.
No. You mentioned that you can choose a percentage of how much
Mhm.
you
You wanna
put into
hedge,
this
yeah.
program. Thank you for those words. What is typical? What, I mean, is it?
I did
do
I did
most
research, it's
entities-
62.5% is typical.
62.5%.
We have it used to do 100, it used to do 50, but 62.5 was the average. I have done a little bit of research and found.
Okay.
I mean, and if you're unsure, I would do a small percentage. That's what I would recommend. And then you're protected on a small amount.
I was
Could you
gonna
help me
ask.
understand the fees? I'm assuming since you're quasi, there's fees associated with the hedge.
Right.
Can you help me understand how that works in the up months and in the down months?
Okay, well, as far as the fees, the program fee is 15 cents per gallon that you participate. So that, as far as that, and what that pays for is we have qualified entity, what do we call qualified entity council? That's, as I mentioned, Bose McKinney Evans. We have our own council. We have a swap advisor. They're called Evercrest. Dodd-Frank requires to have that. We have a consultant, and we have a paying agent. And that's just, the bond bank doesn't handle money internally. We use Bank of New York Mellon to handle that. So those are what the fees are for. If the cap, so that's independent. So we let entities pay it one of two ways. Pay it monthly or upfront. It's a little easier for us to have it upfront administratively, and then we're not reaching out to you every month with an invoice. But we have two entities that we do bill every month.
Okay.
As far as the settlement, I mean, we just will wire you the funds if the cap is breached.
Okay.
And if you do this monthly settlement and you want to pay the admin fee by month, we will send you an invoice for that, and then that's paid also to the paying agent.
Okay. So if I'm clear, I'm going to use some real low numbers because
Mhm.
that's easy for me
Yep.
in math. So 1,000 gallons we're in, we go 62.5. So 625 gallons at 15 cents a gallon, that's our fee.
That's your fee.
And then if there's a breach up or down,
Yep.
and there's additional settlement.
There's additional settlement.
Okay.
That
Thank
is
you.
exactly how the program
Yeah,
works.
my other question was around other school corporations that were rural. If you're going to look at our budget and estimate our usage, I was just curious, but if Heights is in there, then
Western,
yeah. So
Western's in it. I mean, I can read the
they're
entire,
on the country roads too. So no, that's fine. I just wanted to.
I'm just looking at this list here. I brought it.
Stopping and going is a little.
J schools are also in the program.
Perfect. Thank you for your help.
You might have said this in the beginning, but just because this is new to me, can you tell me, like, who owns this program? The Indiana Bond Bank, which is that a private owned company or?
Indiana Bond
explain it
Bank
to me.
is a quasi-state agency.
Thank you.
We answer to a board of directors, the treasurer of the state, Daniel Elliott is chair.
Yep.
And the other 6 members are appointed by the governor, including the Indiana Finance Authority director who is on our board. So we're quasi, so I get state benefits.
Mhm.
We just, all of our operations come from the fees that we charge in our programs.
Okay.
This is one of many programs that we do. I mean, we
Yeah.
issue tax anticipation warrants, we do equipment lease. I think you did equipment lease with us. Have you done? So we do equipment leasing, we do long-term debt. This is just one of many things that we do.
Thank you for reviewing that.
Brooke, is this a program that you used at Western?
Yes, Mark DuBois was the assistant superintendent at that time, now superintendent, and they participated in it. And then the next year they decided not to, and I believe you told me that he regretted that.
Yeah.
So you
So-
have a little experience with,
Right. I
Seeing
mean,
how-
I see the payables come in, hit the bank, I get notification from them on what they're paying us for and, all of that. So I think my only question was gonna be, and maybe you can answer this, Dr. Glaze, is the tanks that we own. I mean, are the tanks tied to a vendor?
Yeah,
And is it gas or diesel?
The gas is, but I think we own the diesel, but I think the gas is leased through Co-Alliance. But we're okay we can.
You're okay,
continue to
whatever.
We
use-
just
yeah.
can't have a contract, right?
Yeah, we just have a contract. You can buy I think we're going to have NDOT coming back. I've talked to the deputy director at NDOT. He thinks they have participated on and off. They come back. We have approached other state entities. Some of these states just use P cards, which are purchase cards. It's just how much that you can document that you use for diesel and gasoline. So just to let you know, I won't guarantee that NDOT's coming back. The NDOT's been an off and on participant in this program. So,
I would
and
assume-
Department of Natural Resource participated 2 years. They did not participate this year. It was kind of a strange reason, and they intend to come back sometime too.
Is it correct to assume the more, the better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there are, just to wade into the details, the market's looking for 42,000 gallons, and by us pooling per month, we can get to 42,000 gallons. We get better pricing. Doesn't mean that we have to, but if you look at diesel, we're over that, except in the summer months, and they're used to that with us. Gasoline, we were a little bit under, but because we had the volumes in diesel, we brought interest, and we have 3 potential counterparties, and they all bid. I mean, it's Bank of Montreal, it's Fifth Third, and a firm called Cargill. So those are approved vendors. We go through, we bid, we let them bid on it, and we take the lowest price.
And one of the reasons why we really haven't pursued this much in the past is because we had a split fleet of contracted drivers and our corporation drivers. So now that we've gone to all corporation drivers, that's why we're looking at this. We didn't buy enough fuel to make it matter before, and now we probably do.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I am more than happy to answer any other questions. We're having a webinar. If anyone's interested in participating in that, I think it's the 21st. I can send you the link.
Yeah, I'll be glad to forward that to all of you. But the webinar, it's again very informative what they talk about. So if you wanted a deeper dive,
Yeah, we will have a deeper dive into it. We will have our consultant on. He'll talk about the market, and we'll have our attorney on to talk about the legal process.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
thank
for
you so
coming.
much.
All right, next in our work session is to review the board agenda. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, with that, yeah. All right. Next, we will have comments from the community. Larissa Tong?
First, I just want to say thank you to all the staff and law enforcement for yesterday for doing everything they could to protect our students. So thank you very much from one grateful parent. Will the budget be posted in the Tipton Tribune and not just the Kokomo paper? I'm just going back to an issue we had before. I just want to make sure we can find it in the Tipton Tribune, right? Yeah.
It
the
will not
notice
be.
for the
It'll
meeting.
It'll be posted on the DLGF.
Yeah.
Right. The
But for
notice
the
to
meeting, I'm saying.
taxpayers.
The meeting will be, don't you have to post?
Are you saying the notice of the meeting
Yes.
time? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
yes,
The
yes,
notice
yeah,
of the
that
meeting
will.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that-
that'll be in Gateway
yeah.
under the
I got it.
public
Yes,
notices.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, and
And
just,
and those dates have been sent to
Yeah.
the Tipton paper.
yeah, because they do once a week, right?
And I mean, all we can do is send them. That's why we do Kokomo as well, because it's a little bit.
Just as long as they're in both places.
Yeah.
All I'm saying.
No,
Okay, okay.
And I believe last time Tipton and Colleader were out of business, and that's why we only went with
Yeah.
our community paper and our business.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I remember asking that in a meeting way back whenever that was. And I just wanted to clarify, the budget piece, just so I'm understanding, is now with the new creation of the
Laura,
superintendent.
unfortunately, we can't answer questions really from this platform, but if you would like to make a comment, we can take that and feel free to email us and we can reply to that.
Okay, I'll just say, I think the superintendent comes out of the operations, and the assistant is half operations and half education. And real quickly, at the last meeting, because I know we got a lot of policies to cover in the next portion of this meeting, there was mention of the whole name change, gender change thing that wasn't on the agenda, and I didn't see it on the agenda for next meeting, but because I had a few comments on it, and because I didn't see it there, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be discussed tonight for the next session of the meeting.
Okay, well,
That particular policy is in. It just doesn't,
The notification piece for the parents, right?
the policy is in, that particular part of the law is, that it discusses, that policy is in the updates that the board will consider
Tonight?
in the regular meeting. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
okay, thank you, Laura. And with that, we will adjourn the work session for this evening and start our regular meeting at 6:30. Okay, I would like to call to order tonight's regular school board meeting for the Tipton Community School Corporation, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Mrs. Sloan to lead. Next on our agenda are comments from the community, and we have one, Laura Satang.
Just real quick on policy 2410 about recording of the IEP meetings and things. I guess my concerns come with privacy. Like, they're being recorded and like who has access to that? And during some of those meetings, I know there's can be a lot of health information that's done in that private setting, and I just didn't know how privacy is protected with it being recorded. Like, who has access to the video when it's recorded?
There's no video recording.
Is it just voice or?
It's voice recording, and the parent would do the voice recording.
Would do the
But if
recording?
the parent does the voice recording, the school would
Yeah.
also.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. And then policy 6550 about the relocation fees. I'm not gonna, it's long. It looks like there were a lot of suggestions in what to do, and I don't know how we can go about looking at doing relocation fees when, I know that the teacher contracts and stuff are up for negotiations, and looking into what some of the other schools are doing, looking at stipends versus base pay raise. I just think, given like said in this room so many times about watching our costs and things, I just don't see that would be a good thing to offer that. And then second, I guess, since I found out that it was put in about the notification piece about name changes and those kind of things like that, is it going to just be notification or like consent? Or, I mean, I don't even know why we have to make this so hard, quite honestly. Like in Power School, it's all there for registration time. You check sex, you check all that stuff like it's there. And I just feel like times we get so bogged down in the classroom with the teachers having, do I notify them about this or that, when it can just be a simple case of it's done at registration, right? It's there. That's the name. Or, ask your parents, you need consent. Or I just haven't had a chance to see what the new policy is going after. Is it just notification of parents? Okay. And given things that are happening around the state and other schools, can you just reassure parents that it's not going to just be only notification and then proceeding with things like that? Or are you also is it just going to be to notify them, but that the parent is the one that's going to have to go in and do that?
Yes.
From, yeah, good. From Hamilton. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
The parent has to go in, log in.
Right, and do it. Mm-hmm.
The school was notified that the student did that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is our consent agenda items. The approval of the agenda, the approval of minutes, approval of minutes from our regular meeting on August 8th, approval of claims for payroll from August 18th and September 1st, and the accounts payable claims from September 12th. We have the approval of the personnel report in September, and then we have the approval of field trips for FFA, their SOAR Leadership Conference, and Fire Leadership Conference, and the FFA Soils Judging Team State Competition. Lastly, we have the approval to accept donations from the Tipton County Public Library, which was $350 to the Tipton Middle School Ag Leadership Grow Towers. I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda item. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'll now read the personnel report for this evening. In classified staff, or for resignations, we have Catherine Powell, who is a cafeteria worker at the high school, Randy Carlisle, who is transportation director and bus driver, Casey McCool, who is a cafeteria worker at the elementary school, and Tamara Jones, who is a Title I paraeducator at the elementary school. Recommendations for classified staff are Ashley Coos, who is an adjunct teacher for kindergarten in the elementary school. Holly Brock is a special education paraeducator at the elementary school. Della Denham, part-time special education bus aide. Janet Todd, who is cafeteria worker at the middle school. As far as reassignment of duties, we have Laura Crawford from Power School Coordinator to Transportation Power School Coordinator for the corporation. For our ECA staff, we have resignations from Sam Phillips, girls track assistant coach at the high school, Christina Soul, academic coach at the elementary school, and a recommendation for Andy Hassong as the varsity baseball head coach. All right, next on the agenda is the superintendent's report from Dr. Glaze.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to echo a little bit what Mrs. Satong mentioned earlier, just talking about how wonderful our staff was with yesterday's events, and just how everybody just jumped in and just were so helpful. And again, on a day when things were, could have been pretty confusing, we just had a lot of people that were willing to help and just helped every one of us communicate better and again, make sure that our students are safe. So I can't thank our staff enough. And I thank our parents for their flexibility. It's again, some crazy times, and Officer Maddox is going to speak a little bit more about that later. But we just want to make sure that to thank our parents for being flexible and really trusting us with their kids. So again, that's a huge honor, and it's a huge job, but we certainly appreciate that. We did have the one day that we will need to make up for, that was Monday, August the 28th. So that day will be made up on President's Day, which will be Monday, February the 19th. We'll send information out as that gets closer. So once again, just kind of a situation where we have the perfect storm, and really didn't have a very good solution in the short term to make it work. And I do want to thank our parents for volunteering to come in and help us out. Luckily, we were had enough folks to make things work for the day after that, and just an opportunity to plan. And I also want to thank Adam for being the sandwich king of Tipton, trying to get all that food ready for the next day. That was wonderful. As I've mentioned to the board in a couple of emails for weekly updates, we are in the process of informal negotiations. There will be a meeting on Thursday, which is a public hearing, just to say that we are going to begin formal negotiations, and that will begin next week. And so we've again been working mostly with informal, just talking about language, and all of that information is in the that original document that I sent to you, that working document for the CBA, so you can kind of keep track of what we're talking about, and again, don't hesitate to ask any questions about that. I do want to congratulate and also recognize our former principal, Melissa Kitka and John Ayers, our current principal of the middle school, who will be presenting at the Indiana School Board Association Fall Conference. They'll be presenting on improving student achievement through student data talks. And so we're very excited about having Tipton represented by two awesome people. and excited to hear or allow them to present the great things they're doing with their teams and talking about data and helping kids improve academically. Again, it's great to watch. So we're excited to be able to share that. Bus inspection was today, and we did have a few of our 12-year-old buses that went through the inspection and went through with flying colors. So once again, thank you to Mark Webster and Eric Johnson, who just do a fantastic job. So now I will turn this over to Officer Maddox, and he can debrief a little bit about yesterday and talk about our plans for the future.
Well, first I was going to mention safety has been a focus all year. So I'm just going to kind of lay out a couple things that we've done before this, so it looks like we're not just covering ourselves. We had our first ever safety week. I think it was the 21st or 25th of August, where we discussed every single drill that we have to do per state law. So we discussed them, and then we also actually enacted all of them. So we did every single drill within a 1 week period. We threw out information to all the parents so they knew what we were doing. I think that was very good response we got back from that. What parents seemed to enjoy that. I know the kids did, because they actually got to do it all at once instead of waiting until the spring to do a tornado drill like it says in the state. So it's been nice to have it all together. And I think the teachers really enjoyed it, because that discussion went over real well when that's the focus for the week, and it was minimal interruption of the school day instead of spread it all the whole time. We've also had safety meetings in all 3 buildings with the safety committees. Those all went really well. We debriefed the safety week, what we could do better, what worked the best. So that was nice. I've done 42 safety presentations so far this year for middle school and elementary. I have 1 more to go, and then I'm done. That's all K through 8, so that's every single classroom, every student's been talked to. So that's been a lot, but it's been awesome to see the kids giving me the information back from the safety week. Like, that was ridiculous what they remember. Like, when kindergartners are saying what Alice is, it's kind of amazing to see that. So that was really neat. So now we're going to kind of go into what's happened these last couple weeks. It's nothing we want to hear, nothing we want to see, but I do have to say that our staff definitely stepped up. The community stepped up, the officers stepped up. So I'm just going to walk through our two threats that we had pretty quickly, very vague. First one was on the 5th of September. The threat was called into the PD at 12:31. All schools were in lockdown by 12:35. So in 4 minutes, every room was in an internal lockdown. What that means is no one in, no one out. We had some upset people that couldn't leave, but it happened perfectly fine. Staff members supported that. Officers were on grounds within 2 minutes of that threat coming in. They were calling me as they were driving here to inform us of the threat. So as you can see, the response time is really, really quick. I think Dr. Glaze knew within the minute as I'm walking down. So it went out really fast. Administrators did really well letting their staff know by email. A lot of them went on the announcement, said check your email. High school, since they have some students that are older that can actually take the information better, they just put the announcement over, we're going to go internal lockdown. So that was good. Yesterday's threat was a little different. It was just called into the school. I'm not going to go into details on that. At 2:08, by 2:10, the buildings were in lockdown. By 2:20, with the help of several administrators, the high school was all evacuated and back in a different location within 12 minutes of the time of the call. So within 12 minutes of the time of the call, everyone was in safe locations and the building was secured. By 4:25, the whole building had been searched by canines that we brought from other agencies. They walked every inch of that high school, nothing found. As that shows, we have great partnerships with our police department and fire, also others. We had a canine that came all the way from Clark Pleasant Schools in Whiteland. He's an SRO and he is a canine. So that just shows the commitment some of these officers have to serve the schools. And that was really neat to see that. This morning, we had a debrief with all admin. That's all 3 buildings plus Dr. Glaze and Mr. Jaworski, police chief, fire chief, myself, and assistant chief. And we just kind of walked through the whole process, what we could do better, what we did well. And the biggest thing that I think we came across was everybody was safe really, really fast, like really quickly. And we know that's the number one priority is to make sure everybody's safe, not listening to what's outside, whatever everyone else is saying, but just kind of focusing on what we're supposed to do. As Dr. Glaze said earlier, the staff is amazing. I mean, they monitor exits. They supported the students really without being asked. Like a lot of it was on them. Like they decided, we're going to make sure these exits aren't available for the students when we were leaving at at the end of the school day. So I think that's really, it really shows that our staff is buying into this safety culture that we're trying to establish. That they're taking it on themselves to do these things and not having to be asked. That's pretty cool. As we talked about already, the fast communication is setting the lockdowns and relocation. That's pertinent to a great safety culture. Like that's pretty neat. And like I said, the great cooperation between all departments and the ability to actually listen to each other. I mean, that's what Dr. Glaze and I talked about yesterday. It's not about just him and I. It's other staff members that come up with ideas that sometimes are better than ours. I mean, so that was pretty cool. We did realize a couple things we need to work on, some language, some potential communication issues that we need to work through. But that's why we do drills, and that's why when you have information like this or situations like this, we go through debriefs to make sure we know what's going on and just saying, that went okay and move on. With that being said, we've been planning ahead with some investigation, I will say, by Mr. Ayers here. We found a new opportunity to better our emergency alert system. The one we have now, it's pretty much you just use it if you need it. That's it. Like it's not made for anything you can specialize. It's just you press a button, it calls police, it sends it to the school to evacuate or lock down. That's it. This new one, they're going to build for us. They've done it. I think he said they're in 1,200 schools right now, and they're going to build this app, and we'll discuss more next month when we have that meeting all done. But they're going to actually technically build the app for us so we can put our expectations into that. So our emergency action plans can go in there. So we can send out communications to all staff at one time via this app. If a room is safe, they can mark themselves safe. So there's a lot of information that can come out in a relatively fast, plus it timestamps everything. So if we ever had to go look back and say, how long did it take to clear the building? This app would tell us. So as you guys can see, there's a lot that we're doing to work toward a safer community, safer school. And I can say, talking with the students today, there's not a whole lot of students that were very anxious about the situation. Several had questions, which, I mean, that's expected. But I was in a 5th grade class this afternoon, and they honestly didn't even know anything happened. And that's how good our staff is they just move on with the day and keep working through. So that's pretty much all I have, unless there's something else you wanted to ask questions on or something like that.
Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
Thank you, Officer Maddox. Appreciate it. A lot of work yesterday, and we definitely saw the fruit of it. Okay, next, I would like for our Spotlight on Schools to invite Mr. Henderson, our Tipton High School Spanish teacher, to come forward, and he's going to present on a trip to Mexico.
Good evening. It seems like it was a year ago that I was here requesting this very same thing, and after a very successful trip last summer, I'd like to request the same. I'm hoping to start recruiting for the trip virtually within the next week or so. I've got a lot of students that are very interested to hear about what happens tonight and to go from there. The last time we had done a trip to Mexico was 2019. Before this past year, and of course obviously all sorts of things happened within between those two times, so this particular trip helped me to reestablish a lot of contacts and make some new contacts with regard to the travel. Probably one of the best contacts that we made was Dennis Wallace, who is the travel agent that we used with Carmel Travel. Dennis happens to be the grandfather of Max and Henry Wallace at the high school as well, too. But he's done a wonderful job for us. I have absolute confidence in him when we would do this again. And just everything went very smoothly, partly because of him. So I really do appreciate that aspect as well. We had this past year, there were 6 students and 4 adults. So myself, Craig Leach, a dad and a mom went along with us, and then we had 6 kids. And so this year, I've got a lot of students that are interested in polling the kids, and I realize the trickle down effect comes into play here a lot as well too. But I've had somewhere around 40 students say that they're seriously interested. And again, that usually would translate into probably 12, 15, 20 at the very most. So that's kind of what I'm thinking will probably take place. But again, I've got a lot of kids that are ready to kind of get started on this process. My hope then is to have a parent meeting within the next couple of weeks or so to truly get started. With passports the way they are these days, I want to get that underway as soon as we possibly can. I think a lot of the kids do have passports, but there's also a sizable number of kids who don't. I may have to renew mine as well too. Depends on how it works out. I've got about 1.5 years on mine, and depending on what the travel agent tells me, I hope I don't have to, but nonetheless, that's something that we've got to consider. So the quicker we can get rolling with this, I think the better. In terms of the time period I'm looking at, and roughly the same time as we did this year, we left on, let's see, I think it was June the, let's say the 10th, and we were gone for 8 days, and then actually it was 9 days if you consider travel time. This year I want to expand it to 10 days, and I'm looking at June the 9th through the 18th. That seems to be a very good time for the kids. Most of the sports activities are over with at that point, and it just really worked especially well. Commencement was just over for a week later, and again, I think for everybody's time it worked very, very well. The trip itself, and again, I'll take you through some slides here in just a few minutes. I'm asking the kids to consider $2,000. I don't know that will be the absolute price when all is said and done. It all depends on airline, I think, more than anything else. And we'll know that information probably January. But I'm telling the kids that are asking, plan on $2,000. And if I've said, if it happens to be 2,100 or 2,200, is that still a problem? No, it didn't seem to be. I hope I don't have to. I hope I can stay within that $2,000 range. So that's the goal, at least anyway. What I'm planning on including in that is pretty much what I did this year. Airfare, of course, hotels. In years past, we had stayed with families, and that was a little tough on our contacts in Merida. Plus the amount of time that we spend in Merida now is a little short, and so hotels work out better, I think. But nonetheless, airfare, hotels, all the meals with the exception of 2 lunches, entry fees to all the attractions, and then ground transportation as well too. So it's pretty much an all-inclusive trip when all is said and done. So, and any tips or anything of that nature, again, that's all included in everything that we do. So you all probably received an email from Craig Leach today. Okay, so I think Craig was very pleased with how everything went. I certainly appreciated him being along. He helped things go much more smoothly as well too. So it was a big help to me. This year I got probably, I know for sure there is one teacher chaperone that is interested. That would be Olivia Gonzalez and her husband. They've already said that they definitely want to go. I've got probably 4 or 5 parents that have expressed interest in going as well too. So I feel like we'll be blessed with chaperoning and all of that, depending on how many and the number of kids as well too. Hopefully it won't be more adults than kids, but but nonetheless, I think I'll have quite a bit of help where that's concerned. Dr. Glaze, would you like to take us through the slides if you could? Okay.
Just tell me when to click.
All right, well, this is day one. This past year, we went from Indianapolis through Detroit and then to Mexico City. And from Mexico City is where we went through customs and immigration. And then from there, we went to Merida, which is the capital of the Yucatan Peninsula, the state of Yucatan. And so there we spent, I believe it was 4 days. So on day one, we arrived, of course, at the regional airport there. And then later on that day, we checked into our hotel. It's the very historic Gran Hotel in the Centro Histórico, the historic district. It is basically one block from everything. I mean, really, truly, one of the best locations. Beautiful, beautiful old hotel. It was built in 1901. The who's who list of people who have stayed there, including Fidel Castro and other people like that. I mean, it's been just a big, long list of different people that have stayed there. But a gorgeous old hotel, as you can see from the architecture. Very comfortable rooms, air conditioned. Later on that night, we went out to, on the way, we went to Merida en Domingo, which is a kind of a sort of a festival atmosphere that happens every Sunday. It's not just 1 or 2 times a year. It's every Sunday. And so they closed down the downtown area, and there's a lot of regional dance and a lot of different things that that are for sale and what have you. So we were able to experience that for a while before we went to dinner at Chaya Maya, which is the pink place up there. But you can also see kind of the decor. It's a very, very much a traditional Yucatecan restaurant. Our boys were trying relleno negro, the meal that has this very black sauce. They were bold, and they were being very adventuresome. One of my favorite dishes, but they tried a lot of different things. And so then we spent the evening around the Zocalo. Next day, then we had breakfast early at Café La Habana, and we departed for Chichen Itza. And in my opinion, Chichen is probably the most iconic of all of the archaeological zones that you would find in Mexico. So with the limited amount of time, I felt like iconic was probably what we needed to do. So the kids really had a wonderful time there. We stopped on our way back at Izamal. It's known as the Yellow City, as you can see. Probably 95% of the buildings in the city are painted this yellow color. But stopped at a wonderful garden restaurant called Kinish. It's one of those places that I take kids every time we've gone. And then we also had a chance to climb a very, very tall pyramid that's in the center of town there as well, too. Okay. All right, so day 3, we started breakfast at Polk Cafeteria, and this is a place that is dear to my heart. Back when I was in college and living with a family there back in 1974, that was where we spent our coffee breaks when we were taking classes, because it was the only place downtown air conditioned at that time. But we grew to love this place, and I shared it with the kids, and they also loved it as well too. We spent the day in Merida in downtown. We went to the La Casa Montejo, which is standing in the dining room of this beautiful old home built in the 1500s. We went to the Mercado, went to the cathedral there in town as well too, and really spent just a pretty wonderful day. Then we had dinner that evening at what's called Los Trompos, which I believe is in the next slide here. Yes, Los Trompos. It is this wonderful family restaurant that's downtown that has the most wonderful Mexican food, and the kids just had a wonderful time there too. And it's affordable. How about that? So it was good on the trip budget as well. Okay. All right. That evening, we went to the world famous Colon Sorbeteria ice cream shop. Now, what Hannah is having there, can anybody tell me what kind of ice cream that is? It's one that the kids thought was truly fascinating. Corn ice cream, that's correct. Okay. And she loved it, and it's one of my favorites as well too. But you know, whoever thought of putting corn in ice cream? But it really is pretty delicious. So again, that was one of those very wonderful experiences the kids had there as well. Day 4, we went to had a tour of Paseo Montejo. We went up to Progreso, the town that's on the coast. Spent the morning on the Malecon. You can see my muscle man over there in the corner posed for a picture for everybody. So we spent the morning there, and then in the afternoon we went to a high school in Merida called El Centro de Estudios Latinoamericanos, or CELA, as everybody calls it. So what's special about this school is back in 2005, 2006, my wife and I hosted the daughter of the little sister in the family that I lived with in 1974, and she went to Tipton High School for the year. She's now a teacher at CELA, and that's her in the front kneeling. And so she gave us all the tour of the high school. She's very proud of the school, and the kids were pretty fascinated with it. Craig was very interested in seeing a high school as well too. So we all had a great time there as well. That evening, we went to El Museo de Gastronomía Yucateco in downtown Merida. Wonderful, wonderful place of Yucatecan food. Every meal that we ate in the evening, my Mexican family, the Guillermo Cantons, joined us. For me, it was kind of a selfish, wonderful time to be with my family as well too. Okay. So then day 5, we went to Mexico City, and you know, very, very different place. The kids were pretty excited. They absolutely loved Mexico City. It's huge, biggest city in the Western Hemisphere, but again, it's one of those places that it feels, has a sort of a small town feel to it in a lot of ways. So they really, truly enjoyed it. We stayed at Casa Gonzalez. This is probably my favorite hotel in the whole city. I stayed here when I was in college. It's more of a boarding house or a bed and breakfast or whatever you want to call it. 3 meals a day are available there. We ate breakfast there every day. And again, just a wonderful, comfortable place in probably the best neighborhood in the entire city. And it's close to virtually everything. And if it wasn't a walk to something, it was a quick cab ride to something else as well. So this is where I plan to be this year. And we toured El Paseo de la Reforma that afternoon. The kids are toasting each other on a job well done, devouring tacos like crazy at a very good taqueria. But we were able to see quite a bit that day as well too on foot. The next day, we had our breakfast at the hotel, and we went to the Plaza de la Constitución, or what's known as the Zócalo, and we came back up Francisco Madero Avenue, which is this pedestrian avenue, where the kids were able to shop. They were able to do many, many things, but it's, again, a very historic street. We ate lunch at the Casa de los Azulejos, Sanborn's chain, which is an institution in Mexico. This was the original established and still in this beautiful, beautiful building. As we were coming back to our hotel, the picture up in the corner, explain that. There is a pharmacy chain in Mexico called Farmacias Singulares, and it is a chain of stores that sells generics. But they have a mascot called Teeny, and so virtually every place you go, you see Teeny there, and of course the kids knew all about Teeny, and coming down the street, taking them up and said, "Senor, it's Teeny." So they had to pose with Teeny. So, but again, beautiful place. Now we also Diego Rivera, of course, big name in Mexico, very famous name. His most famous mural had been in the Hotel del Prado, which was destroyed in the 1985 earthquake. And that was the only thing in the hotel that was not famous. So they basically hoisted it out on a crane and basically built a museum around it. So we went to the museum to see this mural. Again, really quite a masterpiece.
The next day, then we went to Chapultepec Castle. This is where it had been the home of the presidents up until the 1930s, but it also had been the palace of Maximilian and Carlota. So kids got a chance to see that. The views are beautiful. Then from there, we walked to the National Anthropology Museum. One thing that Craig and Tim Vanderbilt had sniffed out the Chula Roll place. Okay, they discovered it, and it was one of the best ones I've ever been to, El Moro. But we also found a wonderful restaurant called Mexicano, which I plan to go back to this time. And again, everything I'm showing you is while then via ground transportation, we will go out to San Juan. This is, again, a world famous site as well. It's probably the next most and then evening dinner at San Juan. This is something that we did quite by accident this year. It's a double-decker tour bus. We went to the south side of the city to Coyoacán. Coyoacán is a city within a city. It's a little bit like Broadway, Indianapolis, Speedway. It's just surrounded by the city. Beautiful place to go. We spent the day there, but the bus tour itself was a lot of fun. We got to see in a very short amount. Something that so that's my plan at this point. And again, I'd like to request that you all could hopefully approve this trip tonight if I can, so I can get started with recruiting, having parents meetings, and all of that. But do any of you have any questions? I know one thing that possibly would cross your mind is safety. Okay, safety while traveling. And the one thing about Mexico City is this, and the city of Merida. Merida is considered to be the safest of all the cities in Mexico right now. Our State Department says it's the safest, and not followed far behind by Mexico City. Mexico City is just one of those places where you just simply, you watch your back, you pay attention to things around you, but I've never felt unsafe there. And so again, I believe that really these two places are probably some of the safest places we can go. Any questions or anything?
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right.
Okay, in kind of response to Mr. Henderson's presentation, we need to decide if we will approve this. So I need a motion and a second to approve the Mexico trip proposal. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, there you go. All right. Next in our agenda are just the department department reports that were included in your packet. Okay. Then next is our financial report, and Brooke, you're up.
Right.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm sorry, Brooke. Does anyone have any questions about department reports?
I had one question on
Thank
the.
you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. On the kitchen update, there was, again, the meeting prior to this, and then again in this meeting, we're talking about getting some free and reduced lunch issues. Have those been resolved, or are you still in the process of getting the startup numbers in there? I guess my question is more so not down in the details. Do we have kids that are not in the program that should be, or is everybody getting what they should get?
No.
Okay. Okay, so this is just back end stuff that we're hassling around. Okay, that's
Mhm.
fine. That's all.
Thank you, Brooke.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else? Okay. Now you, Brooke.
All right. Or to follow up that last presentation. Okay, so we ended August in the education fund with $830,659. Operations, $1,426,803. Debt service remained at $836,071, and rainy day at $2.2 million. With September being our 3 payroll month, I didn't make a transfer in August, just kind of waiting to see how that shakes out, and we may need to do that near the end of September, so we'll see. And the corporation and food service annual financial reports were drafted and submitted before their deadlines in August. And thank you to Adam for assisting me on the food service report.
Thank you so much. Okay, next on our agenda is old business, and we don't have any, so we'll move on to new business. Tonight, we need to approve to advertise the proposed 2024 budget, which we heard about in our work session. The 2024 budget, capital projects plan, and bus replacement plan were shared during the public work session prior to this meeting. Permission is requested to advertise the 2024 proposed budget, including the education, capital projects, bus replacement, and operations funds. A public hearing is scheduled for September 26, 2023. The board would then consider approval of the complete budget at the October 10th school board meeting. I need a motion and a second to approve the proposed budget.
I move to approve the advertisement of the proposed 2024 budget.
Nice.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next, we need to approve to allow the Tipton Community School Corporation's participation in the social mediation litigation, which was included in your packet. I need a motion and a second for that.
I move to allow school corporation to participate in the social media litigation that was
Thank
submitted
you.
in the packet.
Second.
All those, or are there any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the second reading of the board policy updates, which were included in your packet, and there were quite a few of them. We will not read them tonight, but we need to approve them for the second reading. I need a motion and a second to approve that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, they pass. Okay, lastly, we need to approve basically the surplus kitchen and technology equipment. Just we have some old equipment and technology we need to declare surplus. Most of the equipment has been replaced as part of the renovations completed at the high school. Technology included will no longer accept software updates. Every attempt is made to dispose of these items responsibly through recycling. I need a motion and a second to declare these items as surplus.
I move to declare the surplus items for the kitchen and technology equipment as listed in our packet.
Okay, are there any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Lastly, we have other matters to come before the board. We have a personnel committee on September 18th. And then we have our next part of our schedule of events, September 13th, which is tomorrow, is a professional development day for teachers and staff. Students do not report. September 25th and 26th is the Indiana School Board Association Fall Conference. September 26th is the Literacy Night at the elementary school. September 26th is also the public hearing for our 2024 budget at 5:30. And our next monthly board meeting will be October 10th. So lastly, I need a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry.
had
Did I
One
skip
thing
that
to
again?
introduce to, on matters to come before the board, as we're going about our business prior to the end of the year. We didn't have it in this policy review, but policy 3111 on advertisement for jobs. I think it's a policy that we haven't looked at since 2013. And certainly some things indicate that we should look at that policy on how we're listing job descriptions, criteria, things of that nature. So I'd like to recommend to the board that somewhere in our docket, prior to the end of the year, we look at 3111 and discuss any possible revisions.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Mhm.
Definitely, we'll make a note of that and review it. Okay, and sorry for skipping my
That's
point
okay.
again.
I'm used to it.
Wait now. All right, so finally, to adjourn the meeting, I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.